We got a number of decisions came down today from the Supreme Court. The biggest one, the one we were all looking forward to, the one we were all hopeful to, ended up to be one of the great disappointments in our modern day from our Supreme Court, which has been, since Trump got his 3 appointments back in his first term, the Supreme Court has been pretty much about 90 to 95% awesome. They have overturned Roe v. Wade. They overturned the Chevron doctrine. They've given a lot of power back to the states. They've curbed a lot of the insane liberal policies of the deep state. It has really suffered under this Supreme Court. But today they let us down, just like they let us down with tariffs. And we can all speculate why. But first of all, they upheld mail-in ballots. And this is one of the predictions I have gotten wrong because it was so obvious. But we'll talk about that in a minute. And I'll show you guys why, why I got it wrong and why they, today's ruling pretty much upset everybody who made predictions on this ruling, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first, here's a little breakdown from Fox News.
All right, guys, this is not a win for Republicans who are challenging this. Mississippi has a state law which allows ballots to be counted, mail-in ballots after Election Day. If they come in, they're postmarked and meet the state requirements, but it is a 5-4 loss for Republicans. And an interesting cobbling together of who wrote on this. Justice Barrett wrote the opinion. Justice Roberts joined her along with Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. So those 5 stuck together on this. The dissent comes from Justice Alito. Thomas Gorsuch and Kavanaugh join him. And essentially what the majority said is that these federal statutes setting Election Day don't prescribe or they don't stand in conflict with states that want to say, okay, we have a procedure to count ballots after Election Day. Justice Alito, writing for the dissent, says today's decision is inconsistent with the terms of the Election Day statutes, contemporary election law principles, 2 centuries of historical practice, and the case law on the question presented. So if you're a state out there that counts ballots after Election Day based on your state law, that state law will stand. We wait on more opinions now, guys. More to come.
So, Shannon, that means, for example, in California, where it takes them forever to count ballots, this doesn't help that situation at all, right?
It does not, because basically they're deferring to the states on when they can count those ballots after Election Day. They say the federal statute may set Election Day, but these states that have allowed for procedures outside of that and the way that they collect and how and when they collect those ballots, those state laws are going to be good. Mississippi was the state here, but yes, this will apply to places like California as well.
Very interesting. Obviously not what we were expecting, but we will talk about that here in a minute. First of all, let's break down exactly what this case says. So this was Mississippi Secretary of State versus the RNC, which of course, unfortunately was a red state that fought for this. But the majority opinion was 5-4, and it was Roberts and Barrett joined the 3 liberals, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. They held that the federal Election Day statutes don't require ballots to be received by Election Day. They basically, well, here's the meaning. Here, let me get through this first. Meaning of election refers to the day the electorate makes its choice. This occurs when ballots are cast, not when they are physically received. I have so many questions here. We'll get to it. Federal law versus state law. Statute set the deadline for casting ballots. Receipt is left to state law. Support. They gave all these reasons. Electoral college sets a uniform day for voting. Receipt happens later. By the way, this just doesn't make sense because they also upheld early voting. And so if the day is for voting, receipt happens later, but then that would say you can't. This makes no sense. This is an absolute abomination of a ruling. I mean, when it says right here, like Amy Conant in her opinion says, it refers to the day the electorate makes its choice. But if that's so, okay, then make the argument that the receipts come in later. Fine, make that argument. But therefore, you cannot make the argument that early voting is okay and mail-in voting ballots going out before is okay. There's a lot of flaws in this argument. It's the Supreme Court. There's nothing we can do about it, but it's very flawed, which tells you it's the tell, right? It's the tell that this was forced through on purpose. They don't actually have an argument for it. They just pushed it through, and they came up with some hodgepodge way of trying to make it make sense, which ultimately just doesn't work. It says they did not rule on early voting, which means this could still be open. It didn't decide whether voters can recall ballots after Election Day via mail and didn't address the broader scope of Congress's power. So here's a silver lining. Congress can still pass laws, which means the SAVE Act could still change this. Now, Alito came out very strong against this. Alito wrote the dissent with Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Gorsuch. Core holding in the dissent. Federal Election Day statutes require ballots to be received by Election Day. Mississippi's post-election receipt window is preempted. Majority's decision inconsistent with text, history, precedent, and sound policy. Some of the key arguments. Definition of election. While an election is the expression of electorate's choice, that choice is not authoritative until ballots are collected and received. Receipt is part of completing the election on Election Day. 2 centuries of historical practice show when the law sets an election on a particular day, ballots have traditionally been required to be received by that day, even during Civil War era absentee voting laws. I mean, again, there's nothing here for the majority to stand on except that they just want to let this happen. He said the majority misreads Foster versus Love, older cases such as Montana's Maddox decision to support requiring receipt by Election Day. This doesn't give states broad authority to set post-election receipt deadlines for regular ballots. The consequences, Alito calls these out. Majority ruling creates lamentable consequences, including increased risk of fraud, election results potentially flipping days after Election Day, and damage to public confidence, which we already have. The dissent's detailed forceful accuses the majority of downplaying history, misapplying precedent, and failing to adequately consider practical risks. So Alito basically came out and laid down the law saying how egregious this is. This very much reminds me of the case that upheld the Obamacare. This very much reminds me of that, the big fight amongst the justices as well as the tariff ones. And that is the ones where Roberts joined, also with the gay marriage one, where Roberts swayed the court, picked off the swing votes or Republican votes like Barrett. But it's just insane. And the dissent proves it, just how much there is. Now, here's a little bit of a silver lining. This is a great breakdown on what this means. It says some people are clearly misunderstanding the ruling. It's not the ruling the GOP wanted. No, it's not going to fundamentally change the nation. Now, I want to emphasize that real quick, that this is not, this doesn't change anything, okay? It only keeps what we already have. So that's an important thing to consider, all right? Because we did win 2024. We've shown we can still win elections in this system if we overwhelm it. And that was with the Democrats in control, and we still pulled it off. So just remember, this leaves the status quo. It doesn't make things worse. It just doesn't improve them, which is still a disappointment. State of Missouri changed its law so mail-in ballots can be received up to 5 days after Election Day. Question was whether a state can do that, and they can. This ruling, had it gone the other way, would not have fundamentally changed too much. It would have been nice, but it's not the end of days. Key thing we're seeing is people are assuming California would shift massively to the right, and this says false. California wouldn't be too affected by this ruling. So when you watch election results in California, you see days and days of getting bluer as they count mail-in ballots, but most of those are received by Election Day. California just doesn't start counting until polls close, and that's partially true. There's obviously ballots coming in, but so I don't completely agree with this. But they're just talking about the actual election laws in these states. It says the biggest state that probably would be affected the most was Alaska. Alaska has a lot of mail-in ballots, and with how Alaska is, their ballots can arrive pretty late. This is not a good ruling, but it probably affects mostly about 3 states and about 4 races. I disagree with that. I think it's wider than that. However, their point stands that election laws in most states still require the receipt by Election Day. But this does open the door for them to change those laws, and that's a problem. Here's Trump's response. It says, in light of the tremendous loss in the Supreme Court today concerning voters' rights and the fact that people's votes are allowed to be counted long after election's over, it's more important than ever to pass the Save America Act, which is all voters must show photo ID, all voters must show proof, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. There's no excuse for a politician or otherwise to be against the above three requirements. There's only one reason to oppose: cheating. House of Reps has approved this vital act 3 times. Senate seems unable to do so in a time where there's a powerful communist movement taking place in our country, one more dangerous than World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, September 11th. All Democrats and our 5 Republican Senate holdouts, Murkowski, Collins, Tillis, Cassidy, and Mitch McConnell, must vote to save our country. There can be no more excuses. Thank you for this attention to this matter. There's some interesting things here. Okay. And the thing I want to point out is that the House has passed this. Okay. So the House is clearly more MAGA controlled, but Trump is really hammering ever since last week's elections, the communist aspect. This is going to be a big deal moving to the midterms, big framing, big language, big attack vessel, the communist. And it also, if they have moves they can make about communism that's baked into our laws from the past, thanks to McCarthy and several others during the 50s, that is going to be very interesting how he uses that going forward. Again, I'm starting to think Trump knew this ruling was going to happen this way, and it's one of the reasons he's been hammering the Save America Act so much the last 2 weeks. I have a feeling Trump knew, regardless of whether I'm right or not. This doesn't seem like he's as shocked as he was when the tariff ruling came. Tim Pool writes, I expected this from liberal justices and maybe Roberts, but Barrett's arguments read as if she's just saying, let it all effing burn and F yourselves. You can see that nobody thinks there's any argument to be made here. Now, here's why so many of us thought they were actually going to rule and overturn mail-in ballots. This is during the briefings, which I listened to. And Seth Keshel writes this: what all 6 GOP-appointed justices said during their briefings, the question for us should be who got to Roberts and Barrett. Now remember, Trump called out Roberts and Barrett in the tariff ruling, saying that we had Supreme Court justices who were foreign influenced. He said that after the tariff ruling. This is more evidence that is very possible, since they were definitely on the side of overturning it based on their arguments. Alito said we don't have election day anymore. We have election month or election months. Kavanaugh, if the apparent winner the morning after the election ends up losing due to late arriving ballots, charges of a rigged election could explode. Gorsuch, is there anything that would limit states from allowing receipt by election officials up until the day of the next Congress? Barrett, even Barrett was on this line of thinking. If you can still have ballots being received after Election Day, I think that violates the whole notion of Election Day. This woman just wrote the opinion that Election Day doesn't matter for receipt of ballots. And yet this is what she said during the hearing. She definitely changed. Between the hearing and the ruling. Thomas, statute requires receipt by Election Day, which he all wrote, but then Roberts even said it. If Election Day is voting and taking, then it has to be that day. Wow. That's pretty nuts. Okay. That they were so and again, Keshel's writing this. This is why I thought they would definitely overrule it, because it's so obvious. But I've told you guys before, the way I believe these guys act, Roberts, Barrett, whoever in the past, Souter, is that they do a bunch of good rulings that matter, but maybe not as much. But they selectively choose the ones to betray us. And that's why they lull you in. They earn their confirmations. I mean, this is the exact same court that overturned Roe v. Wade and the Chevron doctrine and has given us other wins. Okay, exact same court. But then they've knocked down the tariffs. They just knocked down mail-in ballots. So they're probably going to uphold birthright citizenship tomorrow. So they screw us at times too. And it's a pick and choose thing, because if they were always against us, then Trump would probably be much more likely to investigate them, or we'd be much more selective in our judicial picks. Now, somebody brought up to me this morning saying how Trump really screwed up with Amy Coney Barrett. And you can take that line of thinking, absolutely. Or you can also recognize that Barrett got through after the 2020 election, in which the deep state was pushing Trump out. The establishment had taken back control through rigging that election. Trump had very little power when he got Barrett in. And so what I think he did is he rushed through whoever he could get through that would be even Republican light, conservative light, which was still better than getting a full-on liberal. And again, Roe v. Wade doesn't get overturned without Barrett. We don't get Chevron doctrine overturned. Like, we have gotten a lot of wins with Barrett. So again, she's a disappointment. She screwed us over. And I think there's issues for sure. But I also think she was the best he could have done in that situation. And you guys can disagree with me if you want. I don't care. Now, Trump has been going wild on Truth Social this morning. And, look at some of the things he's been posting about these justices. Let's see here. Oh, where was it? Oh, shoot. Looks like he took him down. I think somebody told him. But he had, after his, right here. Oh, here it is. So, I'm sorry, this wasn't Trump posting it. This is the comments underneath his truth. Roberts and Barrett have both disclosed gifts from George Soros Foundation. Karen Levitt, quote, I think it's obvious they've been compromised. We had, people are just going off, but there was a couple other ones that were really interesting. Where was it? Roberts is the judicial supremacist founders warned us about. The comments kept adding, and so I lost the ones that I wanted to show you guys. They must be way down here at this point now. Son of a gun. All right, well, that didn't work out the way I hoped. Sorry, guys. But the point is there's all kinds of questions about Roberts and Barrett. And obviously we know there's pictures of a man who looks just like Roberts with Epstein. Coney Barrett has all kinds of interesting ties. It's very, very suspect. Let me just put it that way. It's very suspect. And again, Trump called them out after the tariff deal. He called them out that they had, we had two justices who were controlled. And that, my friends, is a big problem. Now, Thomas Massie doesn't seem to think so, as he's calling out the SAVE Act, saying it doesn't need to be passed.
I'll vote for the SAVE Act, but I think it's a distraction from our real problems. I think it's ironic that we control the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the White House, and we're yelling election fraud. I mean, we won all the damn elections. I'll vote for.
I thought Thomas Massie was awesome. Did you guys love Thomas Massie still? Who still loves Thomas Massie? I thought he was the principal guy. He doesn't see any problems with our elections because we won in 2024. So forget the SAVE Act. It doesn't matter. I mean, when you guys wonder who's on our side or not, this is all you need to see. So despite all this going on, guys, it's an issue. I mean, don't get me wrong. This sucks. We don't want this, but it's not the end of the world. And we did get some other wins today. Like this right here. So Matthew Culkin, he's a lawyer, reports, those disappointed with the 5-4 decision today on mail-in ballots received under state law after Election Day, there is some good news. And here's Harmeet Dillon. Very important case. RNC versus Mi Familia votes. Certified granted. The civil rights brief the importance of this case. Clean voter rolls are essential to election integrity and voter confidence. And so the Supreme Court has granted the request to remove non-citizens from voter rolls. Civil Rights and OSG asked SCOTUS to grant cert and resolve this once and for all, and Supreme Court has granted it. So now the DOJ has full go-ahead from the Supreme Court to purge voter rolls. So that's a big win. Because remember, with the mail-in ballots, they still have to be delivered. They still have to go to people who are certified as registered voters. You clean the voter rolls, you clean up a lot of their ability to get more ballots out there. You also have Trump with the USPS, the Postmaster General, saying we're not delivering to states that don't deliver their voter rolls. So mail-in ballots can still be controlled. They can only be cheated with if they're delivered. And the Trump administration is making sure that gets cleaned up. And the Supreme Court did give them the go-ahead to do that. So that is a win. Another big win is that they just granted more executive power to Trump in firing bureaucrats. He said, big win moments ago, the Supreme Court in the Slaughter case, confirming presidential power in our country to remove executive branch officers and agency appointees or reps under Article 2. This decision was long sought by the United States president, dating all the way back to the 30s. Such an honor to be sitting president who won this historic and unprecedented ruling, one of the most important ever given with respect to presidential powers. So now Trump has full authority to purge the deep state. He has full authority to clean out the bureaucracy. That is a massive win. Judges have been blocking his firings left and right. Now, the Supreme Court, interestingly enough, did block the firing of Lisa Cook, said that she cannot be fired until her case is determined. So as long as she's appealing and fighting back the allegations of her mortgage fraud for the Fed, they're protecting that she can stay there. The president can't just fire her at the Fed. It did give a little bit too much power to the Fed. That's a bad ruling we got today. But the good ruling is that the whole rest of the bureaucracy, all these agencies that are unelected bureaucrats that are appointed by the administrations, they all can be fired. And that is a massive win for the Trump administration, which means all that cleaning Bill Pulte's doing and so on and so forth is now fully upheld. And Trump writes again, he double writes on this one. It's such a big deal. Show the importance of the Slaughter case. 90 years of precedent has been completely and unequivocally overruled, greatly increasing presidential power at a time when it's most needed. Very interesting, he says, when it's most needed. What's he saying? Get out the communists, clear out the communists. And Trump saying, I've been waiting for this time. Last week, he gave us that. I've been waiting for the communists to reveal themselves, to make their move. And I've been prepared. And now he says, this is the time when this is most needed, clearing out bureaucrats. It's a big deal, folks. So not all bad news. And this is why we cannot be blackpilling. No blackpilling allowed. Because even though we lost a big case, it just left things as they were. There's other cases that have advanced what Trump can do. And things will change quickly. Now, things are continuing to change quickly as Mitch McConnell might be on his deathbed. Here's the latest on Mitch McConnell, who hasn't shown up in 15 days and is hospitalized.
Desiree Townsend here in Washington, D.C., outside of George Washington University Hospital, where Senator Mitch McConnell is reportedly being hospitalized. Now, this will mark the 15th day of his stay here at the hospital. Now, this comes on the heels after spending 8 days in the intensive care unit at the same hospital back in February, according to sources at the hospital. So each day that Senator Mitch McConnell remains hospitalized at the tender age of 84 increases the probability that he will not return to the Senate. So the implications of this are critically important for Americans, as the Republicans have a very slim majority in the Senate of only 53, now 52 senators, well below the 60-vote threshold required to pass most.
Why is this a big deal? Well, if McConnell dies or has to step down from the Senate, well, then the Kentucky governor can appoint a new senator. And guess who he's most likely to appoint? The guy who has just won the primary, which means we could get a full-on MAGA senator replacing McConnell about 8 months early. That's a big win, which means the Senate gets more MAGA. And bye-bye, Mitchie. This is a big deal. Now, I don't want to get gruesome, wish for him to die or anything, but let's hope this means he's got to at least step down. So let's see where this leads. But it's a big deal. I mean, he's disappeared. And they're trying to cover it up because they do not want to lose that seat. They're already going to lose it in January because in November the guy's going to be a shoo-in. But they were supposed to have McConnell helping them hold stuff up until January. If McConnell gets replaced, all of a sudden we got only Murkowski and Collins and Tillis being the holdouts on most things. And then that means we got 50 votes plus J.D. Vance on any reconciliation and on any rule changes like getting rid of the filibuster. So that's a big deal. You don't need 60 votes to get rid of the filibuster. Now, DeSantis came out today, and he is calling out this civil war going on with the Democrats that started. It's been going on a while, but really ramped up last week. And this is another reason we should not be blackpilling, because the deep state, the entrenched Democrats, the establishment Democrats are in full freak out mode as the communists are taking over their party. And this is going to create so much tension. It's really going to hurt them in the midterms. DeSantis writes, leftists are gaining traction within the Democratic Party by embracing anti-Western third world ideologies. What makes this more absurd is it's happening while we're commemorating the 250th anniversary of the most successful revolution in human history. A revolution whose tenets are irreconcilable with such ideologies. And here is the headline from Wall Street Journal. Democrats are in a civil war. I told you guys, I mean, I was there first with maybe a couple other people, but we called it out. The civil war has started in the Democratic Party, and it's getting much worse. A party divided against itself cannot stand, folks. So despite the fact they got a big win today with this mail-in ballot ruling, they are eating their own. And this is wonderful news for us as Trump is consolidating the Republicans, unifying the Republicans through the MAGA base, which we've seen in the primaries. We saw as he called out the senators in the lunch last week. We saw as Newt Gingrich is calling out the establishment saying, get in line. All of it proves that Trump is getting the Republicans together while the Democrats are falling apart. And that's going to be a big help to us come the midterms. Part of this is Spencer Pratt's calling out Scott Wiener. Scott Wiener found out this week that even he's not crazy enough for the Democrats. This is the guy who's gotten all kinds of insane stuff passed in California, including legalizing some sexual acts with homosexual acts with children. Yeah, this guy's disgusting. But Spencer Pratt says, hey, Wiener guy, remember when you called me McBigot? How does it feel now? Frankenstein you created is coming for you. Every stupid communist learns his history from the hard way. Scott Wiener went to a trans march and got kicked out in California. They called him out and saying he's a genocidal supporting center-right shill. These are how insane the commies are in the Democratic Party. They are calling someone like Scott Wiener center-right. This is gonna destroy them, guys. Destroy them. The Democratic Party is just showing us who they are, and it's not looking good. Look at this.
Next time they say that James is trans, we're all trans.
This is in Texas. Again, it gets better for us the more they show us who they are. They've come out as communists. They're fighting amongst each other. And now in Texas, super red Texas, they're running a guy, and the party is doubling down on all this anti-God, anti-traditional morality campaigning, while also doubling down on the socialism. It's insane. How, like, you hear this and you think, oh, those people are crazy. What I hear is, yes, thank you. Keep telling us who you are, because this will lose you votes.
When they say James is a gay tofu-eating vegan, we're all gay tofu-eating vegans.
We're all gay tofu-eating vegans. That's not going very wrong. Texas.
And when they say James is going to hell, we'll say we're all going to hell. but joke's on them. Next time they say...
Is it on them? Tallarico came out on the same thing and calling his own voters. Well, just listen.
But the current political landscape is too small for Texas. The politics of this state is narrow-minded and short-sighted. But the
people in the state, the politics of the state, narrow-minded and short-sighted. That's not going to go over well, folks. Again, these people are nuts. Yes, they're dangerous if they get into power. But the problem is when you're this open, the odds of you getting into power are very, very low. And the proof is starting to come out in the pudding. Look at the latest. Major military strikes against Iran began, but now, June 27th, see, this is the tracking of independence. Remember, polls lie, but trends don't. And the trend of the polls is that this is independence reached their lowest with Trump during the Iran, and it's fully recovered. 43% now independents are back with Trump. Why? Well, he got Iran escalation down, oil prices going back down, and the Democrats are starting to show they're communists. Independents, even though most of them are left-leaning, do not want communism. This is good for us, guys. This is a very good thing. Pennsylvania this last week, weekly voter registration update. Republicans gained almost 7,000 in a week in purple Pennsylvania. Overall lead for Democrats down to 70,000 since December 24, right after the election. Republicans have gained 70,000 in voter registrations in Pennsylvania. We won 2024. We won it with mail-in ballots. We won it with early voting. We won it with the Democrats going all in to rig it, with them in power. And all the shift is still, we are trending rightward. So this is why I'm not blackpilling over the Supreme Court ruling. Trends are still in our direction. And then one of the most important trends happening right now for the midterms is that Trump's approval is going up, but it's especially strong with the base, and the base determines midterms. Here's Harry Enten, my favorite New York Jew.
Republicans love Donald Trump more than any president's own party supporters loved him at this particular point. Just take a look here. Okay, own party supporters, 21st century presidents, own party approval about at this point in the second term. Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seemed to wear off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
And what kind of approval are we talking about here?
Okay, so we're talking about overall approval here. How about the strongly approved, not just like, but love. Okay, we're going to look at these same presidents again. Strong approval among your own party's base. What you see here is Trump is the only one who gets a majority at this point in their presidency. Obama was at 48%. Bush was at 47%. You see here Trump at 53%. Not as high as overall approval rating, but still getting a majority of the Republican base, at least in the average of polls, to say that they still really, really, really like him.
Okay.
And that's what matters for the midterms, guys. We show up, we win. I continue to say this. We show up, we win. With what Trump's doing, with the positioning he's at, with the Justice Department, with the fighting over voter rolls, what they're doing with the USPS, if we show up, we win the midterms. I'm unequivocal about that. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. My view on the midterms is things are continuing to get better for us. We still got to show up, especially if the SAVE Act isn't passed. That's going to allow the Dems to rig. But remember, that's going to be mostly in blue states. They have to win several swing districts to win the midterms. At this point, the Senate is pretty much assured to stay Republican. The House is the fight. And that's why every single one of us, especially if you're in a swing district, has got to show up and vote. We vote, we win. We have the numbers. We have the people. We have the president who's performing better within his own party than even Obama did with Democrats. That is strength, folks. It's not weakness. Despite what the media wants us to think, the Mark Halperins want us to think, Trump is strong as ever, as any second-term president's been with his base. All we have to do is show up when we win. So don't black pill about today's Supreme Court. It sucks, but there's plenty of silver lining, and we still got this. Nothing can stop what's coming so long as we make sure it doesn't happen on our watch.